Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. A new state law went into effect on Monday and it impacts everyone who drives. The new law limits the idling of all motor vehicles to 5 minutes in a 60-minute period. While there are some exceptions for emergencies, the law is designed to protect human and environmental health. This afternoon we're going to discuss some of the key reasons behind the new law and learn about an idle-free driver certification being offered at no cost. Joining me from UVM Extension is Dave Kestenbaum. Dave is the director of the Certification for Sustainable Transportation program. Also with me is Rebecca Ryan, and she is the director of Health Promotion and Public Policy of the American Lung Association. Welcome to both of you. Now, I was always brought up that when you start your car, it needs to warm up. So people would start their car and leave it in the driveway running for several minutes, even 15 minutes, depending on how cold outside it was. But that's not the case.
It is not the case anymore with today's equipment, but most modern engines. You really do not need to idle. The best way to start up a vehicle is just to put it in gear and drive slowly. It's definitely nice to get in a car that's been warming up for 10-15 minutes on a really cold day, but it definitely, if you're using equipment as a reason, it's not necessarily. In fact, idling can cost twice the wear and tear on engine parts.
Oh, no kidding. And the slide we just saw, it says wastes money too?
Absolutely. The idling is associated with the fuel expenses as well as increased expenses for wear and tear on your vehicles.
That's amazing. I didn't realize that. Now, Rebecca, one of the bullet points on the slide was emitting pollutants. And what do we know about exhaust fumes and what they do to the human body?
The two most common widespread pollutants are ozone and fine particulate matter, or PM 2.5, and both are serious threats to lung and heart health. Children with small lungs and higher breathing rates, the elderly, and those with chronic lung disease are most vulnerable to air pollution. Even short-term exposure to particle pollution can trigger a heart attack. In addition, PM 2.5 is a known carcinogen, and so diesel operators are at a higher risk of developing lung cancer than the general population.
Now, a lot of times when a car goes by or you walk past a car, you can smell fumes, but are there fumes that you can't smell that do this damage? Exhaust from engines is very dangerous, in particular diesel exhaust, so whether you smell it or not, it's not very healthy. Okay, we're going to take a moment now to hear from Dr. Gerald Davis on the adverse health effects of idling. Dr. Davis is a professor of medicine at the University of Vermont and a board member of the American Lung Association in Vermont.
I'd like to talk to you about emissions from vehicles and air pollution and going idle-free. And if we look at what comes out the tailpipe of a gasoline-powered vehicle, there are a number of air pollutants that have really bad health effects. We've got oxides of nitrogen and sulfur. You've got carbon monoxide. The oxides of nitrogen and sulfur combine under sunlight to create ozone, which is particularly troublesome in triggering asthma, worse respiratory disease, and cardiovascular disease right after the exposures occurred. If we look at diesel exhaust, we get another problem, which are the fine particulates in addition to the gases that we've already talked about. And those fine particulates are so small you can't see them. They're very hard to eliminate, and they act like cruise missiles. They absorb other gases, hydrocarbons, cancer-causing chemicals, and carry them deep into the lungs where they wouldn't otherwise be. The health effects of this kind of air pollution occur within minutes to hours of the exposure. For people who have asthma, it can make their asthma much worse. For people with chronic lung disease, it can trigger an exacerbation, which might bring them to their hospital emergency department or their doctor's office. And it can trigger cardiovascular events, cardiac disease, irregularities of heartbeat, heart pain or angina pectoris, or even real heart attacks, myocardial infarction. The rates of all of those things go up soon after exposure to high levels of pollutants. So the bottom line message is go idle free. Don't idle your vehicle when you don't need to. Turn off the key to cut down on adverse health effects for little children who are passing by, for adults who may have chronic heart disease or lung disease, and for yourself.
Well, according to the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources, motor vehicles are the largest source of toxic air pollutants in the state. So I guess, Dave, idling isn't just bad for our bodies, it's also bad for the environment?
Oh, absolutely. When we're looking at idling related to climate change, which is perhaps one of the biggest environmental challenges of our time, the U.S. transportation sector is responsible for about a third of greenhouse gas emissions. In Vermont, if we stopped idling our vehicles, 1 minute per day. If all vehicles in Vermont reduce their idle time by 1 minute per day over the course of the year, we'd reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by about 20 million pounds of carbon dioxide.
Talk a little bit too about the cost when it comes to fuel.
When it comes to fuel, in the United States, we burn about 6 billion gallons of fuel each year just idling vehicles. And well, that equates to, at $3.50 a gallon, well, right about $20 billion of fuel being consumed from idling. Now, bringing that down to Vermont, there's a big potential for cost savings through idle reduction and from reducing our consumption of fossil fuels such as diesel and gasoline. If we reduce the idle time of in Vermont for every vehicle by 1 minute over the course of the year, that would represent about a 1 million gallon savings in fuel.
That's
each
amazing.
year. Huge numbers. And then that would translate into about $4 million per year at $4 a gallon of fuel for Vermont. And that's just a 1 minute reduction for each vehicle. So there's probably an opportunity for all of us to reduce our idle time by a minimum of 1 minute, but probably much more.
Yeah, definitely. And so there's more than one reason to put a halt to idling.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are health reasons, there are environmental reasons. We know it's better for the equipment, and then we could even reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. We always ask people to find a personal reason to go idle-free, and there seem to be plenty to choose from.
Absolutely. So, Rebecca, what is the law in Vermont regarding idling?
There's a number of laws. In 2007, lawmakers recognizing that diesel exhaust was particularly dangerous to children banned school bus idling on school property. And the new law addresses all motor vehicles, so no more than 5 minutes in any 60-minute period. There's an exemption for idling on private property. However, a little-known law that was passed in the 70s bans engine idling while the vehicle is unoccupied. So there's really no reason to idle your vehicle on your private property. And there are several other exemptions, but those are mostly for emergencies and equipment operations. And in most cases, there's really no reason to idle your vehicle.
And so your organization's Extension and the Lung Association have been working on an idle-free certification program for drivers. And so what does this program do, Dave?
Well, it's an online training, and the training, through the training, we worked with professional drivers around the state of Vermont. We worked with engine manufacturers and health professionals, put together the training, and drivers can sign up, take the training, and earn an idle-free certification. It's an online course that takes about 40 minutes.
And what are some of the things that the course goes over?
It reviews it reviews what is idling, what it means to go idle-free, which means eliminating unnecessary idling. We review when and where it might be necessary to idle in a vehicle, ask people to become aware of when they have opportunities to shut down, and also we ask them to find a personal reason to go idle-free.
And what are some of the personal reasons that you've heard that people have?
Oh, we hear stories of folks being concerned because they might have a child or a grandchild with asthma, and they want to go idle-free because they're concerned about their children's health or the health of someone else's children and people in and around their vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, too, are you having an easier time convincing some companies to take this on when they realize how much money they can be saving?
Oh, absolutely. We know that most businesses, their primary motivation is economic, and they need that their margins are tight, the business environment is tight. So when you can tie efficiency, environmental efficiency into cost-saving efficiencies, well, it helps drive the message home.
Mm-hmm. Is that something that you've noticed as well?
We have noticed that, and also there's the associated healthcare cost savings as well. It's healthier for their drivers not to be exposed to dangerous levels of air pollution.
And so what kind of companies are taking advantage of this certification?
Well, this is brand new, the certification program in Vermont. We have a similar program that's been operating nationally, and we've had about 5,000 drivers go through the training programs that are from the bus and motor coach industry over the past year and a half. In Vermont, we know that companies like Burlington Electric and Fairpoint Communications have already expressed interest in deploying these training programs, at their organizations.
And just for an example, are we talking hundreds of dollars a year that these companies can save, thousands of dollars a year?
Depending on the size of the fleet. When we work with the bus and motor coach companies, this and a parallel training, we're seeing a 2 to 8% increase in fuel savings on a vehicle that consumes $30,000 a year in fuel.
Wow.
Well, those are big numbers.
Well, you interviewed some of the individuals and companies that have been involved in the IdleFree certification program, and here's what they had to say about it.
Hi, my name is Terry Gates. I am a meter reader. I'm on the road 100 miles a day. I am in a stop-and-go vehicle, so every time I'm out of my vehicle for more than 30 seconds, I shut the engine off. I went idle-free a few years ago for my 9 grandchildren. I want their environment to be a beautiful one and safe, and I also have saved thousands of dollars in gas. So please join me and become idle-free.
Because of my time spent in the town of Milton, we had a fleet of 5 large plow trucks and several smaller trucks that had to spend some time idling.
Yeah.
And when I started focusing on this, both from a money standpoint and a health standpoint, indeed, a good third of it wasn't necessary at all right off the bat. So we were able to save quite a bit of money in fuel in the first year. And when you do something and track it and you actually see results, people actually feel engaged in the process, and actually we all kind of liked it once we got working on it and getting something accomplished.
I'm Kurt Hassinger, and I'm speaking to you from Volvo's state-of-the-art powertrain facility in Hagerstown, Maryland, where some of the world's cleanest, most fuel-efficient, heavy-duty diesel engines are developed and built. Environmental care is a core value for the Volvo Group. In conjunction with that and society's consciousness regarding the environment, as well as every business's need to control cost, I encourage you to go idle-free. Simply put, this means the only time a coach engine should be idled is to maintain a comfortable cabin environment for passengers. The prior mentality that it's better to idle a diesel engine than to shut it off is simply no longer valid. Idling serves no useful purpose for the engine, unnecessarily consumes fuel, and needlessly increases coach exhaust and noise emissions, as well as carbon footprints. Go idle-free. Do your part for the environment, as well as your company's bottom line.
I'm Rebecca Town. I lead human resources and transportation, and we have a no idling practice that we ask all of our hundreds of drivers to engage in every single day, because we believe it's the right thing for our communities that we serve, for the drivers, for their families, for them to limit idling to only times when it's absolutely necessary for business purposes. And other than that, turn it off. And hopefully, as we influence our drivers, they develop a habit that they then start to do all the time, at home, at work, and all of a sudden we're seeing dramatically less idling in Vermont.
They're so passionate about this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think once folks have a better understanding about that, the impacts of idling, that it's a small change that can really make a big difference, well, they're engaged. They're engaged in the process, and it's something easy to do. Idling, even for myself, is this behavior that I often do without thinking about, and it's just trying to break that habit.
And that's a good word. Habit is the word that this other woman used too, and that's really all it is. And so what does an individual or a company need to do to get involved or to sign up for the program?
There's 2 ways that a company can get involved. They can go to erating.org with the University of Vermont Extension, or they can call the American Lung Association in Vermont at 802-876-6500 to register.
And once again, this isn't a huge time commitment.
No, the program is 40 to 50 minutes of online training.
And at the end of the course, every individual will get their certification, and to get the certification, they go through the online training, which in total takes about 40 to 50 minutes. There's a short 10-question quiz that you get stewarded through, and you basically cannot get a question wrong. And at the end of the quiz, there's a video clip from some of the people that we just saw on screen, as well as other Vermont drivers, and basically asking individuals to pledge to be idle-free. If someone pledges and makes that commitment, they receive a copy of this document with their name and date of completion on it.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining me today. It's a great program.
Thank you.
That's our show for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.